1 minute. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a meeting of the General Committee on Tuesday, February the 6th. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest, members of the committee? Seeing none, both our delegations will be coming back at a later time, so we're going to move right into presentations. Jamie Ustin, Director of Public Works Division, regarding item 7. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair, Mayor, and Council. This evening I'm here to present the automatic meter reading system implementation for your consideration. With me this evening are Jacqueline Beattie and Paul Frost from Utilisys. They are the consultant we've been using on this project. To begin with, back in 2015, BMA provided a report to Council which focused on water billing in the City of Cambridge, and one of those recommendations called for an automatic meter reading system to be implemented. That brought me to Council in May of 2017. The requests were to have Council direct staff to pursue discussions with Energy Plus to come up with a partnership for an advanced meter infrastructure system, and also that staff report back to Council with a process to implement an AMI system. Hence me being here this evening. The request tonight is that Council approve the establishment of a capital project for an AMI implementation system at a cost of $13.421 million with funding from issuance of a debenture. As well, notwithstanding the purchasing bylaw, Council approves staff to sole source portions of the project as identified within the report under procurement details. Should Council agree to tonight's report and put AMI in motion, this will resolve one of the last outstanding requests from the 2015 report from BMA. An AMI system, it's actually quite tied into Cambridge's strategic plan. Within Cambridge Connected, Objective 7.3 states that we should be providing innovative leadership in the management of our assets to help fund, plan, and maintain those assets in a sustainable way. Our objectives with this project are to improve customer service for the public, as well as provide a more efficient operation of our distribution and wastewater collection system. And what we're proposing tonight for an automatic meter reading technology can be accomplished through an AMI system, which stands for Advanced Meter Infrastructure. So some basics on AMI and how it works. You'll see in the little diagram here, we've got a meter and a radio. Those are located within the house, within a residential home. They track water use by time and by the hour. That information is then sent to collectors, data collectors that are located throughout the neighborhood. In the diagram here, you can see collectors on a hydro pole. They can also be found on buildings, water towers, structures such as that. Those collectors then relay the information that they gather to a centralized computer. That data is then processed by that centralized computer and made available to Cambridge Billing Division for issuance of bills to our customers, as well as information that is sent off to operations to allow us to gather more data on how our system is functioning. A partnership with Energy Plus would see the data collector and central computer within that process being shared between Cambridge and Energy Plus. AMI systems are great for the customer service they can provide individuals. First and foremost, there would be a service web portal. That would allow consumers to monitor their own usage. They can see how much water they're using by the hour. They can monitor what they're doing and make decisions about how much water they should be using. And conservation is often a result of people being aware of their spending habits with water. It will also allow city staff to troubleshoot billing and metering issues over the phone with almost near real-time information. Another great feature of it is that notices can be sent to customers who are experiencing issues through their billing, and that can be done within a matter of days as opposed to the existing billing cycle, which is about 60 days. The best example I can give you would be the case of a running toilet. Often they run with little noise. People are not aware that they're actually running, and people don't become aware that it was running until they get their bill after 60 days of this toilet. Generally, that can result in $150 to $200 in additional cost to an individual. With this system, it is able to detect this type of irregular usage, and a notification can be sent to that individual provided they've given us updated contact information to make them aware of a problem in their home that they need to investigate. Beyond the customer service, there's several additional benefits. One is that we'll end up with more accurate billing. There will be a reduction in estimated bills. Estimated bills often result when the meter reader who is on foot cannot get access to the reading device or the meter. Typically in the winter, people might put snow up against their fence, can't get access to the backyard, and an estimated bill has to be issued. This would resolve that problem. As well, when we go through a change like this, we go through all the accounts and verify the accuracy of the billing that's going on for every one of them. A system like this keeps us on the leading edge of metering technology. This has been implemented in many municipalities in Ontario, and some of our neighbors are on their way to doing this as well. Being able to troubleshoot issues over the phone results in fewer service calls and also results in us having to go into people's homes less frequently. As well, the meters we're looking at installing, it's a newer meter technology, and these meters maintain the accuracy for their entire life, over 20 years. Presently, we're using mechanical meters, and over time, they begin to fade and become less accurate. These meters are not like that and maintain 100% accuracy for their lifetime. Data also becomes available for the city. That will help us to plan and make decisions, especially around water loss, inflow infiltration issues. We'll have a greater understanding of what's going on with those. As well, we'll have a better understanding of our customers and what their usages are and what their needs are. Meters are also equipped to send out notices of potential tampering or theft, water theft. And also very important is that it will reduce the amount of water loss and inflow and infiltration that we're experiencing in our water distribution and wastewater collection systems. So over the last year and a half when working with Utilysys, we explored two main options. The first one is considered a standalone system. This is one we did not go forward with, and this is also the one Council directed us not to go forward with back in May. So in this type of system, the city would own all the meters, all the radios, we'd own the data collectors, we'd own the central computer system, as well as be responsible for all contracted maintenance for those systems. In order to implement that, it would have been a $19.5 million capital investment through a 15-year debenture. And annual operating fees to maintain the debt as well as maintenance of the system would have been just under $3 million. By utilizing the existing infrastructure that exists with Energy Plus, the city would own the water meters and the radios still, but we would share the data collectors, the centralized computer, as well as share the maintenance on the system. This drastically reduces capital costs by almost $6 million and brings us down to $13.4 million across 15 years. As well, operation costs are reduced by $1 million to just under $2 million per year. Within this partnership, there would be several RFPs and tenders that would have to be issued. Many of them would have to be sole sourced, as we would be using an existing radio system, so many of the pieces of equipment that would be installed would have to be compatible with the existing system, hence sole sourcing for many of those items. As well, within the business case, there's an additional 2 FTEs required for 2019, which are included in the $2 million operating costs. One would be an AMI technical analyst within the billing division. Specifically, they would be reviewing all exception reports, such as the high water leaky toilet I told you about, also the theft alarms. They would have oversight of the notification process, getting those notices out to the public and the utility. They would also be responsible for system security as well as performance audits. And they would be the main liaison with Energy Plus as well as the service providers for the items out in the system, the collectors and the centralized computer system. Public Works would also need an additional meter technician. Presently, we have 2 technicians to service our 40,000 meters. By putting AMI in place, we would essentially be doubling our assets. So we would have the existing 40,000 meters, plus we'd be adding 40,000 radios, hence the additional need for a technical support within the meter department. So as far as financial impacts, I've explained a lot of the benefits, and I'm telling council tonight that we can achieve this for just under $2 million a year. And I'm sure the question is, okay, well, what kind of impact does this have on our water users? And that is the answer. So not to be blunt, but there will be no impact on the rates if we go forward with this system. The next question you will be asking is, how is this possible? It's pretty straightforward. The AMI system will allow us to recover lost water in inflow infiltration. That will reduce our operating costs, as we will be paying less money to the region of Regional Waterloo for both water and wastewater. Essentially, the system will pay for itself through the next through water loss reduction. We're expecting to see an additional $500,000 reduction in water loss. We're also expecting to see $1.5 million reduction in wastewater inflow infiltration. That's where surface water leaks into our wastewater collection system and ends up being treated by the region. We have to pay for that treatment. As well, with the more accurate meters we'll be using, there'll be additional revenue through that. As well, there'll be reduced meter reading contracts, as we'll no longer need people out in the field taking reads from meters. User rates will remain the same. That needs to be understood, and that is with or without an AMI system. As without an AMI system, these savings cannot be found. We can continue on with the existing rate structure as it is without AMI, but those rates will remain the same as without an AMI system. We won't have the capability to find the additional water loss and I&I that I've mentioned here. So water loss and I&I. I'll give you a brief overview of how we plan to find this within the system. It's called district metering areas, or DMAs. It's an industry standard for capturing lost water in a distribution system on a mass view. If you look at the picture up here, this is actually a section of Cambridge. So what we do is we'd isolate sections of the distribution and wastewater collection systems. We would then put meters in at those select locations. By doing that, we can then compare how much water goes into a given area to how much water was used and captured through the smart meters. So it's a mass balance of what went in versus what went out. And if we find a big discrepancy in those two numbers, that provides us with a hot spot, and we'll send staff out to investigate. And we do have 2 pilots scheduled for 2018 to put DMAs in for both water and the wastewater systems. As far as the industry's best method for recovering water in distribution and collection systems, an AMI system connected with a DMA, or a district metering area, is the best system out there. As far as tasks and timelines go, in 2018 we would need to replace the existing water billing system. It's an older system, and it won't meet the functionality of an AMI system. Hence, we would need to replace it and upgrade. During 2018, all the various tenders for supplies, materials, contract services would be issued, and we would begin with a pilot project of 1,000 meters and radios. The purpose of the pilot would be to ensure that all the communications are happening properly, the billings are going out properly, as well as to ensure that the meter installation process has been fine-tuned. In 2019, the pilot project would wrap up, and then we'd move into our public education campaign. Right on the tail end of that would be the mass installation of all of the water meters. So the remaining 24,000 meters that need to be replaced would be done so beginning 2019, as well as 39,000 radios to ensure the entire city is covered. That mass installation would be completed at the end of 2020. And with the completion of that, that is my presentation for this evening. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Montero?
Thank you. Through the chair. Jamie, these water meters that we've been installing in the last 2 or 3 years, are they compatible to this new system? Can we add these radio systems to the existing ones in order to get this end result with the transmission?
Through you, to the chair. Yes, the meters, we've done an analysis on the meter population, and meters that have been installed over the last 8 years have the existing technology to work with this system. City of Cambridge has approximately 40,000 water meters within it. We would have to replace 25,000 of the 40,000, so 15,000 meters would remain in place.
On top of the ones that we already have?
No. They'll try to go through that again. The 15,000, those are the meters that are 8 years or younger that get to stay in the system. So we're not losing all the assets that are in our water system. There are 25,000 meters that would have to be replaced, and that's either due to age or the fact that technologically that they won't work with an AMI system.
Just want to clarify a second question is when you talked about it, you answered it partially, but so what we all understand is when you have this system in place, you can identify certain areas of the city where we're having water loss. Because right now, we could have a water loss, say, in the Preston side, and you're not knowing it's there, but it goes throughout the city. The water loss is for the whole city. So you can isolate certain neighborhoods. Is that by neighborhood or by town? How does that go, like being Galt, Preston, and Hasbro?
Mm-hmm. Through the chair, it really depends on how the systems are laid out. So the example I provided here, that's a small piece of West Galt, I believe. That shows you where we could potentially set up 3 of these. So it really depends on the distribution system and how they're designed. Ideally, within the city, we could probably, early analysis showed we could probably set up 12 of these, and you know, they are kind of based on neighborhoods. As the neighborhoods were built, they were integrated into one another with the distribution system. So newer systems, as we come online, we're looking at isolating those and creating systems by themselves. So it is very neighborhoods driven, but that's really because of the way the pipes went into the ground.
Even with the old infrastructure that we have in certain areas of town?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Mayor Craig?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I really appreciate the presentation. You've answered my questions on the pilot project and on the large water losses because I was interested in how that worked. What is the lifespan of the new equipment?
New equipment, through you, the chair. New equipment has a lifespan of 20 years.
So would you have an ongoing kind of rotation at some point in history of replacing it?
As far as future replacement would go, we would run the assets to the life of 20 years, and once that occurs, we would then have to start this process all over again. So we would be looking at another mass implementation of water meters. Mind you, we have ongoing reserve funds to prepare for that. We don't want to come back here in 20 years and debenture this again.
No, I appreciate it. It's an excellent presentation, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Leggett?
My question was the one about how many years before we go through this again, so thank you.
Councilor Reid?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you have clarified that we are using the meters that are currently installed now if they are okay. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, of the 40,000 meters in the system, 25,000 would require replacement, and that's either due to age, they're 9 years or older, or the fact that they don't have the technology to work with an AMI radio.
Okay, then my question is, I did have a constituent who has difficulty with the radio waves that come off the meter, and we had to take the meter off the house and place it out on the grounds. Can we still continue to do that for this customer?
Yeah, through you, Chair, we would have to look at individual cases. There's no reason why, I mean, we'd have to come to an agreement with the property owner, but there's no reason why we couldn't run a piece of conduit, run that wire to a post, you know, a utility post 4x4 away from the house, plant it there. That's actually an application we do with a lot of our meter chambers. We have meters in chambers, and we have to get the outside remote accessible still. So we run the wire between the meter and the remote through a conduit, and for special occasions, we can certainly work with the homeowner.
I appreciate that, because the family became quite ill because of the waves off of the meter. The other question I had was, what would be included in the public education program down the road?
It would, sorry, through you, Chair, it would focus on a lot of the common issues that come with a mass meter changeout. People are often concerned that there's a fee to come in and change the meter. There's fears that some contractor is knocking on my door and they want access into my house. Just to let them know what the process is, how AMI works, some background information on radiation, and how it's proven not to be an issue for most cases, and just to give them comfort. So going forward, that would be a tender we'd be putting out to have someone assist us with that actual campaign. So we'd have professionals on board.
Councillor Devine?
Yes, thank you to the chair. I have a number of questions. Jamie, this debenture of $13 million, and thank you for your presentation, sorry. This appears to be coming out revenue neutral. $13 million debenture, 13.4. $1.98 million a year to service that debenture. Is there any additional cost to the taxpayer or to the water user using this system?
No. Through you, Chair, the answer is no. Based on our analysis, we see this as being a cost-neutral program.
The other question I have is the two FTEs, they're going to be city employees?
Yes, they will.
All right. What would happen if Hydro 10 years from now changes their system? Where will we be at? Where will we be at?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Our initial discussions with Energy Plus, we've agreed that both the city and Energy Plus would have separate contracts with the service providers. So that allows us, either partner, to end the agreement if it's decided that's how things would go. So hypothetically, if we were to say Energy Plus wanted to abandon their system, we would have the option of buying the existing infrastructure at reduced costs and continue to maintain it ourselves. There are also other options coming forward where there's a lot of private service providers who are willing to take on low-band communication networks. Mm-hmm. So we would have options. We wouldn't be bound with Energy Plus. We would have the ability to end the contract and go out on our own should we need to. There would be costs associated with that. Mind you, when you compare to what it would cost if we did it alone by ourselves, there's instant savings of $6 million on the capital and $1 million annually on the operations.
Okay. Our current meters, what's the lifespan of our current meters?
Current meters are 20 to 25 years.
2025, and these ones that are going to be going in, it's the same lifespan?
Yes, they've got a lifespan of 20 years, and that's they're a solid state meter. They don't have mechanical, there's no mechanical parts in it, and the register runs on battery. So the battery is really what is the bottleneck on the lifespan, and it's rated by the suppliers at 20 years.
So do we change the meter, or do we just change the guts of it?
The guts of the meter?
Yeah. Would we just change the module of the meter? Or change the whole meter?
Two separate items. So the module, it's another name for the radio. The radio has a 20-year lifespan on it as well.
Yeah.
Meter has a 20-year lifespan on it on top of that. So your average, if we went in for an issue, we would do troubleshooting and determine was it the radio, was it the meter, and generally at the cost of the devices today, they're disposable. We're buying them for just under $100 in most cases. They're almost considered, we used to refurbish, we used to put new guts in them. In my mind, that wasn't a sound practice because you can't guarantee accuracy after you've ripped a meter open and reassembled it.
Okay, and through the chair, one more question from the left. What pilot area are you looking at for the city?
That hasn't been determined yet.
I would suggest we take the one that we think has the largest water loss in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, thanks for the presentation, Jamie. That was excellent. Just in relation to the timeline, the anticipated timeline to pay for the system, you talked about having capital put aside to replace the system because you say the lifespan is approximately 20 years. We have a debt to pay off. How long will that debt take to pay? And what is the anticipated capital that we would have for the next system that we would put into place?
I think I might defer the question to Mr. Fairweather. Through you, Chair.
Thank you. Through the chair. The debenture costs are approximately, just give me 1 second here. On an annual basis are approximately $1.2 million. And the life of the debenture will be about 15 years. So what we're planning on is that in the last 5 years of that, whatever the debt payments were at the end of the expiry of the 15 years would be put into the meter replacement reserve fund. And we're currently contributing somewhere around $500,000 a year to the meter replacement. So if you continue that at the end of the 20-year replacement cycle, we should have sufficient funding in the reserve to pay for the replacement.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. Chair, we've talked about no increase or no impact on the end user, the water user. But that doesn't negate that we will have annual increases from the region as far as the purchase cost of water. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, I hope not to confuse anybody. There still will be annual increases. There are operating costs that continue to go up. Our costs, our unit costs for the region to buy water as well as have it treated, those costs will continue to go up, and we've projected rates into 2020, 2021. Those rates will not change. So what we've presented to council in the past will remain. You just won't see any additional rate increases because of this program.
Thank you. And if I may, just for clarification, so we will see those annual increases that we have discussed in the past as far as the water use and purchase is concerned, but there will be no increases to the end user as far as any of this equipment or implementation system is concerned for the new AMI.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Adshade.
Thank you, Chair. And Jamie, thanks for your presentation. It really made a lot of sense.
Thank you.
The question I have is the $2 million that costs. My understanding is that I thought or could you give me an estimate? Is that exactly how much we're losing in this system right now? I thought we were actually losing more than that, so it might be a savings, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
Through you, Chair. That is correct. Our annual water loss is closer to $3 to $3.5 million a year, and our annual I&I losses are, I believe it's at this rate about $5.5 to $6 million per year. So there are additional losses in there that we'll still continue to look for. You know, we won't stop with the system. We'll keep moving forward to find those losses.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Well, I have no questions. No further questions. All my questions have been answered. Thank you, Jamie, for all the work that you do. Councillor Devine, you have the motion.
Yes, I do. Through the chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Montero. Advanced meter infrastructure AMI implementation. Recommendation that the committee recommend to City Council the report 18-022 CD re-advanced meter infrastructure AMI implementation be received, and that Council approves the establishment of a capital project for advanced meter infrastructure AMI implementation for $13.421 million with funding from the issuance of debentures, and that notwithstanding the purchasing bylaw, Council approves staff to sole source the portions of this project as identified in Table 2, procurement details. Can I speak on it? I think Jamie did a good job of explaining this. we have an opportunity here to make things easier for everybody concerned. But one thing that's really, really glaring with this system, to me is very glaring, is we can very quickly look at the water loss for our homeowners. It can be very quickly done. As my understanding, they can go on the computer and check, which is important because a running toilet can cost you up to $100 a month or $120 a month in water loss. So, but the other thing is that, and you know, that the cities struggle with this and the council struggle with this, the water loss in the lines, like the broken lines, etc. And the city's done a great job with implementation the last couple of years on identifying the water loss and repairing the water loss. It's still higher than we would like. And with this system in place, it's going to be able to identify the areas where we have large water loss by comparing very quickly the real-time numbers on water that's being used and water that's going through the system in that area. And it could, if there's a 20% loss or 22% loss or 27% loss, then we know we have a problem in the area and we start looking. So hopefully this will help everybody in the city, and I'm in favor of the motion. Thank you.
I see no further speakers. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? The motion carries. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
We have our next presentation, Gagnon Sandhu. I hope I pronounced your name right. Manager of Road Operations regarding the winter operations update. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I am Gagan Sandhu, Manager of Roads Operations with the City of Cambridge. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here tonight. And I'll be speaking about the good white stuff called snow and the city's winter maintenance operations plan, how to deal with that good white stuff.
Yeah, if you could speak into the mic, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be speaking about what are the main drivers behind the city's winter maintenance program, how we go about our plowing operations under different situations of snow accumulations, and what are the different criteria that we consider, how we plan our salting operations considering and balancing the environmental factors. And then I'll run through a typical winter event, what we do before the event, during the event, and after the event. Some of the improvements that we have launched this year going forward. And then in the end, I'll be happy to take any questions. The city's operation standards and practices for winter maintenance programs are based on a lot of requirements. The first and foremost being the minimum maintenance standards, which dictates when the streets will be serviced and which streets will be serviced. It all depends on the traffic volumes and the speed of the road. The higher the traffic volume and the higher the speed of the road, the higher priority road that road is. And then the Employment Standard Act and the Highway Traffic Act has some requirements that we, as the city, as an employer, have to comply with. And so does the Clean Water Act, especially in terms of assessing the salt-sensitive areas. So in the city, we have two different event types when it snows. One is minor, when the snow accumulation is less than 10 centimeters, and the other is major, when the snow accumulation is greater than or equal to 10 centimeters. Under a minor event, we only cover regional roads like Hespeler Road and the collector roads. And under the major event, all the city roads are covered, including the regional, the collectors, and the residential and the local roads. Snowpack condition is acceptable for the residential or local roads as long as there is no known other defect. And it takes roughly 24 to 36 hours to service the entire city road network during a major event. In the spirit of being good stewards of the environment and the rivers, staff realizes and recognizes that the region's groundwater supply is sensitive to salt, and because of that, and to address the risk and liability, salt application is limited to the regional roads and the collector roads or any other physical features such as hills and bridges and any other special zones like school zones or bus routes. Again, to consider or address the risk and liability, spot sand or spot salt is done in residential roads to address only the icy conditions. During a typical winter event or during a winter period, winter months, staff continuously monitor weather forecasts through various channels. We initiate winter road patrol in addition to the regular road patrol which is carried out throughout the year. On a proactive basis, we engage in anti-icing to prevent the bond formation between the snow and the pavement. We use two methods for anti-icing. One is the liquid application, the other is the dry salt application. So if we have applied the liquid, the pencil streaks on the roads and the bridges are obvious. During the event, we start and focus with servicing the regional and collector roads, and as additional resources and time allows, we spread out or fan out into the residential roads. After the event subsides, there are always some spots or locations where the cars were parked or where the snow has been pushed onto the road. We address those. Usually after a major event, there is snow lift during nighttime in the downtown core areas. And regularly throughout the winter maintenance season, we take care of our equipment, reorder the materials and other supplies, and we continuously learn the lessons learned from the previous operations. Some improvements that we have done this year and going forward, staff developed a web app and a public education website. Through this app, the streets can be seen color-coded based on how long ago the street was serviced. So the green, the blue, and the red in the screenshot indicates streets which have been serviced how long ago. Other improvements are just to address the morning rush hour. The switch between the night shift and the morning shift happens at 6 a.m. instead of 7 a.m. There has been good feedback operationally from the staff in general as a whole. The city's bylaw staff will be enforcing the tag and tow requirement this year. The pilot for contracted services for addressing a portion of the city's cul-de-sac has been extended to citywide cul-de-sacs going forward. And staff will be piloting with the pre-treated salt where there are better chances of mixing the salt when we order the salt from the vendor. And this acts in lower winter temperatures also. As far as clearing of sidewalk goes, this is a joint effort between Parks and Rec and the community. The separation or the overlap of the joint effort is the residents are required to clear the front and side lots, side of the sidewalks, and all the balance of the sidewalks the Parks and Recreation staff does in-house. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Montero?
Thank you. Through the chair. Thank you for your presentation, although I heard it before, but it's good to listen to it again. But one thing that I have, today I just got a call from someone that we are not enforcing the tag and tow on the snow events. Who is enforcing that now? I know it's but are the road people calling by law to come and enforce the tag and tow?
It's a joint effort between transportation services, communication, and bylaw. But as far as enforcement goes, it's up to the bylaw. Now, would that event be over the weekend?
Yes.
We did not declare a snow event over the weekend. Maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, but I got the call today, and it's to do with snow events. This person was informed that was in a snow event that I guess our street doesn't get properly plowed because a lot of the neighbors leave the cars on the road, and then when the plow goes by, nothing, it doesn't get cleared. She wants the bylaw to be enforced. But I'll have something to say after we present the motion. But right now, it's just bylaw that's doing it.
Yes, that is right.
Thank you.
Councillor Reid?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, well, I just wanted to tell you, and my question will come at the end of this, but 2 or 3 times a year, the students from the Jacob Hesper High School through Mr. Lambert's class and civics come here, and they give us ideas that they think that the city could use and to prosper with, and then we critique what they tell us, and that helps them get their mark. Given that, the last time that they came, they had quite a few inventive things that they talked to us about, and one of them was using beet juice in order to, rather than salt, because of the fact that it was less environmentally dangerous for us to use. And I do believe, in an answer to that we do use something besides just the salt, and I wondered if you could fill me in on that, and how we deal with the salt and try to keep it down so that we don't overuse salt.
First of all, based on the event type, based on the intensity and duration of the snow, we try to spread salt accordingly, sometimes lesser amount, sometimes medium amount, sometimes higher amount. And we also try to lessen the salt use by pre-wetting it with the liquid. First of all, it doesn't get scattered or bounced off the road when it hits the road. It stays there. So we are more confident that if we spread little amount of salt than usual, it will stay on the road, not scatter. In terms of the beet use, before my time here with the city did some pilot. There were 2 main problems with it. The spray nozzles were getting clogged, and the tanks that would hold that beet juice, just because of the jerks and the shocks of the truck, would foam up and create some problems. And this is not from the comments or the feedback from the city staff that I'm hearing, but I did a little quick scan. This is mostly usually the problems with using beet juice.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I did understand that we had tried the beet juice, which was a surprise to me because I wasn't even aware that we had tried it. But I thought that we also mix something with our salt now in order to make it a little better in our use of salt. Am I mistaken in that, or my memory is faulty, perhaps?
You are correct. The practice that is still being used by most of the road authority there is to pre-wet the dry salt with brine, which is a salt solution. We pre-wet the dry salt with magnesium-based solution.
Councillor Leggett.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Gagan, could you please tell me, I have 2 questions. Is there a difference in how we deal with cul-de-sacs versus dead ends? Like cul-de-sacs, I've always been done at the last point of plowing. What about dead ends? Are they considered cul-de-sacs, or do we treat them the same as the rest of the street that they're on, since they're direct through?
So if I understand the question correctly, there's 2 aspects, the timing and how do we service them. In terms of servicing the dead ends, we do it in-house with our staff and resources. And in terms of timing, since the launch of the cul-de-sac contract, whenever staff feels that a contractor's mobilization is required, it is more or less done the same time as staff would go out. Whereas in the previous years, there may be some timing difference in when the cul-de-sacs were serviced.
So, but the dead ends, the frequency and the timing, is that done similar to cul-de-sacs, or is that done when there's the actual rest of the street is being done? What are we supposed to be doing? Because I get complaints about one particular street, and it's annual, and I always have to call in and get something done, so.
I can be certain about the frequency of it. Whenever the dead end will be serviced, the cul-de-sacs will be serviced, or more or less a big event is happening. In terms of the timing, again, it's very difficult to predict. The contractor can start from one part of the city, we can start from the other part of the city. This part may see cul-de-sacs being serviced sooner than the other part. We try to balance out so that there's a perception that we're not giving preference to any part of the city first. The operators have their own set route which they prefer, but sometimes they would change also so that everybody gets a perception that the timing is being treated on an equal basis.
So I'm thinking of Lowry Avenue North in particular. So that doesn't get plowed all the time with the rest of Lowry Avenue North. It seems that the plow just doesn't go up and finish those few houses that are there. So that is common, that's what's supposed to be done, or is that just being missed? Can you check on that and
Yes,
get back to me?
I will certainly
I'm not
check
trying
on
to put
that.
you on the spot, it's just that you're doing this, so it's an opportunity for me. Now, my second thing had to do with exemptions on sidewalk, because you said that all residents are required to do their front and their corners, but yet we do have some exemptions, you know, if there's no boulevard, you know, it's on the regional road, that kind of thing. Can you tell us what the exemptions are, which residents would be exempt from plowing or shoveling their sidewalks, please?
I will call upon my colleague Chris Zemsky.
Thank you very much, Gagan. And to your question, through you, Mr. Chair, I have a slide I can share with you here. As noted, we perform this function through the Parks and Recreation Department. And the sidewalks are required to be done within the bylaw of 36 hours after termination of a snowfall. Our target is to complete it within that timeline. The exemptions fall within sidewalks that are located within the 4 business districts, the downtown cores and Hespeler Road business area. We're responsible for clearing those the other sidewalks that the municipality owns, those being curb-faced with no boulevard, or where the boulevard is no more than 0.25 meters from the curb. We also are responsible on back lots, where there are sidewalks that are on the back sides of the properties, butting onto another road. Sidewalks in front of properties that are owned and managed by the city, so park properties, facility properties, etc. Certain sidewalks along regional roads, and then our street-to-street walkways that lead from one area to another, or street-to-park pathways that are connected by paved pathways within our parks. We have a total sidewalk area of 13 routes covering across the city, including walkways and trails, for a total lineage of 196 kilometers that we maintain. During the weekdays, we maintain them during regular business hours, shortly upon accumulation forming, and on weekends, staff are deployed upon 5 centimeters or more accumulation. Hopefully that answers your question, Jen. You're welcome.
Also, Hardy would like to say a few words to you, Hardy.
Thank you. I just wanted to touch base a little bit, or provide Councillor Montero and the rest of Council with, or General Committee, with a bit of an update on the tag and tow. We've had a number of people that were complaining about streets not being able to be properly plowed and creating what they would term a bit of a mess. And although we do have a tag and tow program, which has been enforced by our Corps of Commissionaires, we're going to be expanding that and appointing some of our supervisors in our roads division so that they too are able to tag and tow these vehicles. So it's a bit of an enhanced service level And so you'll be seeing an appointment bylaw coming soon. Thanks.
Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. First, I want to commend staff for the work that they do, because I think all of council have seen a reduction in the number of complaints over the past year, and I know that that's attributed to the work that staff do, and we've seen that with the number of snowfalls that we've had of late. And certainly for myself, there's been a reduced number of complaints, so that's great news, and it speaks to the work that you do. I do have one issue that I have to bring up, and I know that the people in the BIA are responsible for clearing their sidewalks, and I have one particular person who complains, and the complaint is, I'll clear my sidewalk, that's my responsibility, but the truck comes by first and plows it onto the sidewalk, and I clear it off. But then it comes by a second time and a third time, and so I understand that, and I don't know how you can answer that, or what information or what advice I can give back to the property owner. I know we do a good job clearing the streets. They try to do a good job clearing the sidewalk, and this is the quandary that we find ourselves in when we do a good job on one hand and we try to do a good job on the other. So any advice would be appreciated.
I think if the residents look at the web app that is being launched recently, that may help, because it tells based on the color coding whether the truck has already been there or what kind of road is it, secondary, primary, or local, and to try to coordinate their clearing efforts based on what they see on the app. And we do know of some tight locations, and in those locations the drivers have been instructed and trained to take precautionary measures such as driving slow and clearing with caution. But if we do get calls, we are right on the dot with those calls and addressing those calls.
Thank you. And if I just for clarification, Mr. Chair, so the drivers may come by 2 or 3 times just to make sure that they've got everything that they want to get off the road. Is that correct?
The only time that I can think of now the driver will come second time is if they were not able to clear it in the first pass, or they were able to make the first pass, let's say 7 a.m., and the storm has not finished, it's carrying on. So either during their shift or change of their shift, or they're staying overtime, they're making another pass.
Thanks. And if I may, Mr. Chair, please take the message back to staff that we appreciate the work that's been done, and especially over Christmas. We know that staff were out on the day after Christmas clearing roads so that people could get out and be with their families and friends. And somebody has to give for that to happen, and we recognize that staff were giving of their time, and they weren't spending time with their family. They were out making sure that everybody else was safe when they were out traveling. So we really do appreciate the work that staff do. Thank you.
Mayor Craig.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you, just a statement, if I may, and I certainly appreciate the work that's been done. Going back a number of years, I would get an average of about a dozen complaints per storm. I've had 3 this winter, and that's the difference. And those complaints this winter I just pass on, and they're rectified. And I think it's a remarkable job. One of the major complaints we used to get in the past were cul-de-sacs, and I haven't heard complaints about that for a few years now. So I'm really pleased about what's happening and the effort that's being provided to the citizens of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Montero.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thanks again for the presentation. But I have a comment, but it's not to you. It will be to Hardy and Gary Dyke. As we all know, we have a 36 hour to clean our sidewalks. And but you also know that this year we've been having snow almost every day or every other day. So you know that 36 hours in order to clean your sidewalk, but if it snows against tomorrow, the 36 hours start again from the next day for another 36 hours. And if it snows every 2 days or 3 days, like we've been having as of late, in the last little while, and I think we're having a storm tomorrow and another one on Friday, the sidewalk never gets done. And I would like staff to go back. I know that all the other cities around us, Kitchener-Waterloo, is 24 hours to clean your snow. We have 36. I think lowering going back to 24 hours, it would help this issue, because there are people that have mobility problems, like we have one here, to get from place to place. If the sidewalk doesn't get cleaned, if someone decides, okay, it's going to snow again tomorrow, I'm not going to clean today and do it again tomorrow, this is not working. So I'd like staff to go back and think about this and bring this back to council, that if we can change the bylaw from 36 to 24 hours. 24 hours gives you plenty of time to clean, but there are people with mobility problems, and then this could go on for a full week. My other comment was to do with, and Hardy already answered, having some of the staff sworn to so they can, because there are a number of streets that they don't get a good plow, they don't get cleaned well due to cars being parked in the street. And I have yet to know that somebody got a ticket or being towed for the street not being. And then we get the phone calls that my street has been plowed, it's a mess, and now it froze, it rained, and the ice is all there. So I think we should do that sooner the better, that at least the supervisors can issue tickets for parking.
Councilor Montero, we can take that as direction to staff and ask for them to report back at their convenience. We'd appreciate that. Councilor Devine?
Yes, thank you through the chair. Mr. Zemsky and Mr. Sandu, thanks for your presentation. You cleared up a lot of things. Tag and tow, that's something we really have to push. I feel bad for the operators when they have to plow around vehicles, and it's rampant through the city. But all you got to do is, we have snow events. All you got to do is look out City Hall here and look in Dixon Street. These cars parked there, okay, in snow events, okay, and we have to deal with that, because you can't plow properly. The question is, after we have a major plow or a full plow, how long does it generally take to do snow lifts in the 3 cores? Because most of the cores are pretty limited for space, particularly on the Queen Street core.
We are able to take care of 1 core per night, but if need be, we can extend the operations over early morning hours or late evening hours also, to take care of more than 1 core.
So how long after the full plow do you do that? That's the question.
The very next shift.
Very next shift?
If the conditions call for it, if there are sightlines issues, space limitation issues, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to say what a great job you've been doing, but the two complaints I've had was where someone was towed, and I am in favor of the 36 hours, not the 24. Many people find it very difficult to get it all done within the 24 hours. I know my husband's out there doing both blocks, but frequently that snowplow breaks, and there sometimes is a time to fix it. So, and just listening to other people, like, I know that if it snows every day and someone is determined never to shovel their sidewalk, that could happen. But for most people who are reasonable, I think 36 hours is there, so that's it.
Thank you, Chair, and I just wanted to say, echo what was said earlier. I've noticed a real improvement. There's much fewer complaints, so thanks for doing such a great job. And one thing I think Mayor Craig mentioned, and one thing, I have a lot of cul-de-sacs in my ward, and the complaints have really been diminished. Could you just maybe give a brief overview for people here as how we've improved the cul-de-sac program, Gagan? Is that possible? Just a brief overview of, just to fill us in. Yeah.
Sure. It's a different machine, just a single loader instead of a fully harnessed plow truck with front plows and wings, takes a bigger space. It's an additional resource than in-house staff. Staff is able to mobilize that resource at the same time as a full-scale launch of a major event. So that there is a timing improvement right there. Because of a different kind of machine, the machine is able to service the shape of the cul-de-sac, it being round, better in terms of where to place the snow, be it on the boulevards or the center. I think those are the reasons.
Thank you.
I have no further questions. I just want to, not Councillor Heidi Bromberg.
Yeah, I'm certainly no counselor, but just for information to General Committee, I just wanted to let you know that we recently did tow 4 vehicles, and in the snow events in December, we issued 154 tickets. So just for your information.
I have no further questions. I just want to commend you on a job well done. It's been quite a challenging winter, and you've handled it very well, and I know that staff work hard, and they've given up time with their families over the holidays, so we appreciate all of that. And I live in a condominium, and I remember that one snowstorm that we had on the Monday, where we were all out shoveling ourselves. Like, we pay condo fees, but that day we had to shovel ourselves to get out. And I thought, I'm going to get a lot of calls just because of the nature of the storm. I didn't have one call. So that just speaks to the job well done that you've done. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is no motion for this side. It's just for information. So Councillor Leggett, you've got item 6. I'll let you put that on the floor.
Just for James Etienne to come to the podium to answer a bunch of questions that I have, please.
You may.
Yeah, he's aware of it.
Yeah, James, thanks.
So this is for the Elgin Street reconstruction from Samuelson up to Glamis Road. Now, when I'm reading through this, James, it talks about the different contaminants that are the reason for this increase that we're looking for is mainly because of the dewatering that's necessary in this area to do with the contaminants that are there. So when it talks about high levels of TCE, do we have an indication of where on the scale? I don't have it in my memory of what it is, but if it was a 1 to 10, are we looking at like a 2 or an 8? Because that was a pretty, that area there has a lot of garages and places that would be using that cleaning solvent. So do you have any idea?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't comment specifically on the intensity of the findings. I wouldn't be considered qualified to interpret some of the reports that I've seen. But it's important to recognize that it's part of the additional work to try and assess, just how much work is required, what sort of measures will be employed to address either the contaminated soils that they come across or the effluents that they remove in the dewatering operations, and through that, obviously the scale will be determined. What I mean by that is that there are various levels. For example, in hydrocarbon contaminations, when you're removing soils, that you can judge on site, whether or not that soil meets the certain criteria that it can just be left on site to decant a bit, versus needs to be taken to a disposal facility.
Okay, so the groundwater, because it's so close to the surface, that's why the dewatering has to happen, similar to Franklin Boulevard and Dundas Street, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. The depth of installations around 2.5 to 4.1 meters require that they do have to do some dewatering to allow the installations to be done in the dry.
Okay, so that groundwater, do we know the direction of that? Does that go directly into Mill Creek?
Based on what I have looked at, the groundwater is moving generally in a south to south west direction. Mill Creek is is at the bottom end of the extent of that project. The Grand is about a kilometer and a half away. Generally there is a movement trend in that direction.
Okay, you probably can't answer this question, so it might be a question for Mr. Dyke or Mr. Bromberg here, but when I look at the budget increases that we've had to look at, and some of them have happened in my ward, one we had to postpone from last year on Goldie Avenue, are we looking at, when we do these reconstructions from the master plan, some of these areas are known to be industrial areas. Have we increased the amount of money we put into the budget in anticipation for this overall in most projects, or are we looking at it individually after the fact like this one? Just curious while we're dealing with this.
Gary? Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Through to Councillor Leggett. All the projects that are identified through the master plans are part of their 10-year capital forecast and prioritized that way. So if their value would be included on that scale, wherever they would fall in a timing standpoint. So we're not waiting on one. So if they're part of it, if they've been identified as a project in the 10-year capital forecast, they're budgeted accordingly for that year when they come on stream.
So, but in our overall budget, do we have some pocket of money where we keep in anticipation of an increase of, like a 10% increase on any project, if that happens, or?
Yeah, I mean, we have capital reserve would take care of that, the fluctuations and we contribute to the capital reserve on an annual basis, so that would cover those type of costs. Mr. Fairweather can address anything beyond that, but that's their general practice.
Okay, so I guess I'm just concerned when we look at the amount of contamination we have in our city, potential contamination, and what we've already come across in my term on council. I would hope that we are actually thinking about that in the reserves, and there's money going in case we have I mean, this is a small amount of money. It's not a small amount for a lot of people, but it's a small amount of money for something like this. But if we get hit with something that's really, really big, are we being progressive in our thinking and making sure we've got extra money sitting in a reserve in case that happens, or are we just going to put that off for 10 years when that kind of a project happens?
Gary? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Councillor Leggett. No, we just don't put it off. I mean, from our standpoint, as our new process on identification of capital projects, all those factors will be put into place as to when you attribute a cost to them going forward. So if a capital project is X, we would factor in any situations that how we're moving forward with the projects, but we'd have to, has it been done for every project, we'd have to go back in and look how the costs determine that, but from a go-forward standpoint, as we price out and we budget for projects, those will be calculated into the cost of the project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you.
I have no questions or comments, so all those in favor? Carried? Oh, sorry, who's the seconder, Councillor Leggett? That's why you got to table the motion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Devine, item number 6 is printed.
All those in favor? Motion carried. Councillor Adshade, you've got the consent.
Thank you, Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Mann, that the public consent agenda for Tuesday, February 6, 2018 be adopted as recommended.
All those in favor? Carried. Notice of motion, unfinished business. Councillor Leggett, you've got the close of the meeting. Oh, you may.
I was wondering, based on the conversation tonight over TCE, some of us were able to attend last year a road show by the company who's involved with the TCE cleanup of North Star. And those people in that area, it was pretty well attended. Councillor Mann and I were both there. But the discussion was there of whether we could have those people come and do a presentation so that all of council, as well as the rest of the community, is aware as to where it stands, where they've come from, and how they weren't able to do what they thought they were going to be able to do, and how they've had to switch gears, at this point in time. And I think it would be beneficial to the public if we would do that.
So you're requesting it?
I'm requesting that, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. What we'll do is we'll get them to contact the clerk's department and we'll invite them to come in. Good idea. You've got the motion to adjourn.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Devine, that the committee meeting does now adjourn at 8:13.
Meeting adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.
Oh, 8:08, sorry. Yeah, I'm out, but let me just change that.
You wish my life good.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you very much. You always do a great job.
you do, Daniel.
Yes. Pays attention. She pays attention.
All right.